Air travel. President Joe Biden announcing today that he's pushing to try to get cash into the hands of people whose flights are delayed or canceled. Most of the top 10 airlines cover a hotel room and a meal voucher, but now if your flight is delayed or canceled because of something within the airline's control, like staffing or scheduling, the Biden administration wants travelers to also get cash compensation to cover other expenses. This afternoon, the president said this is especially important after $50 billion of taxpayer money went to keep the airline industry up and running during the pandemic.
Not voluntary, but mandatory for all U.S. airlines to compensate you with meals, hotels, taxis, ride shares, and rebooking fees, and cash, miles, and/or travel vouchers whenever they're the ones to blame for the cancellation or delay. And that's all on top of refunding the cost of your ticket.
Airlines need to accept their fundamental responsibility to better serve passengers. When they don't, we are here to enforce passenger rights and hold airlines accountable.
Both the president and Secretary Buttigieg mentioned that the travel meltdown that happened with Southwest over the holidays 5 months ago, they pointed to improvements since then. So cancellations were under 2% for each month so far this year. That included the busy spring break time period. But keep in mind, any new changes that we're talking about here with these proposals would not come in time for the summer travel season. Also expect pushback. Most airlines are not expected to be on board with this proposal. Joining us live right now to discuss all this is Kevin Fairbanks-Bloom. He is a senior travel advisor with AAA of Western and Central New York. Certainly appreciate you taking some time for us tonight. I wonder what is the most common complaint that you hear from travelers when their flights get delayed or canceled, especially in the context of it's one thing if you get a hotel voucher, you get some type of compensation from the airline, but it doesn't cover everything, and that's why we're hearing about this cash addition proposal.
Well, Michael, when you think about what did happen over the past, some people, it's very simple. You're going to be compensated. You have a hotel room. You're going to be flown out the following day, and it's fairly cut and dried. But with the situation that we had before, people were stranded for multiple days, and the airlines were not covering the entire length of the stay. They were not paying for meals, so people were paying out of pocket. And if you had travel insurance, you might have been able to claim any of those extras under the travel delay portion of the travel insurance program. But now with this new program being proposed, it's being put back on the airline. If you're the one that is responsible for this change, now you're the one that's going to be paying for it. So, get your house in order, basically, to me, is what it's saying to the airline. And of course, there's not a set date yet of when that's going to be happening, but putting it out there, it really is giving them a heads up. You know what? You really need to get things in order, get your scheduling programs, set so that you're not having the issues that happened before. Obviously, weather delays are not going to be a part of that. That's going to be kind of like the get out of jail free card for the airlines. But in the things that should be under their control, such as the scheduling, problems with aircraft, or the people aren't where they're supposed to be, then that is really where it's going to come back and it's going to help the traveler.
If you had to give a ballpark dollar figure when a flight is delayed or canceled, maybe under these most severe circumstances, what are those additional costs? What do they look like when you factor in, maybe having to pay for a cab or an Uber or whatever back and forth to the hotel, and then these other expenses that just pop up? I mean, it's not necessarily a small amount of money, right?
No, it really isn't. And when you think about it, these rates will range depending on where this is actually happening. So if you're in a place, say Florida during the winter season, a hotel near the airport could range anywhere starting at $150 a night and go up from there, even as high as $300-400 a night. And then you have your meals on top of that, and depending on where you're eating them, you're eating in the hotel or you have to go somewhere else that's in the vicinity of the hotel. That just keeps racking up. Some of the hotels could have shuttles that are free back and forth from the airport, but some might not. If it's something that a bunch of airlines are all dealing with at the same time, you could even run into the problem of availability in a close distance. And so hotels that are further away from the airport are not going to have the transportation. And so there's that Uber cost or that taxi cost. So there were cases of people that were, putting in claims of, I've spent, 3 or 4 nights at, $200 a night or more, and I've had to buy meals for those days. And, you know, you could be talking $1,000 or more, $500 or more, all depending on those circumstances.
Finally, Kevin, what do you make of the argument that I'm sure some people sitting at home right now would make, that the airlines are just going to pass this on to all the customers? This is just going to mean that fares are going to go up, or is there something that's sort of built into how the airlines operate, and that they should be covering these instances?
Well, that's always privileged information from the airline, but for an airline to not have contingency plans in place for the what if scenarios, to me, just means that that airline probably won't be around for much longer. And when you think about, you know, the airlines finally have been turning a profit compared to all the years that they were running in the red. They've done it by, you know, paring things down to the bare essentials. So they actually are making a profit. Will they be as profitable? Well, the only way to make sure of that happening probably will be some fare increases, but I don't see ticket prices jumping major amounts of money. I mean, this is going to be something that's going to happen on, you know, rare occasions if they get their acts together. So it probably would just mean a very small increase for the most part.
Kevin Bloom is a senior travel advisor with AAA of Western and Central New York. Kevin, thanks so much for sharing your insight on this. We appreciate it.